Preface. Paul Blart was the strongest amongst his peers at the Paul Blart Fighting Academy. It was never easy being the best, but Paul finished first. He was a winner. His father convinced him that there was no other way suitable for him. It was a hot, dusty summer on his father's ranch. Prior to his exploits at the Paul Blart Fight School, which was formerly the YSL Street Education Complex, which was formerly Atlanta State Prison, Paul Blart worked several odd jobs from 1987 to 1994 before becoming employed at several strip malls in Georgia. At this time, ranches were commonplace in every strip mall around the country. The day was very dry, and 8,000 or so cattle under Paul Blart's watchful eye grazed peacefully in the strip mall parking lot. Paul was out riding by the Devil's Ridge, so aptly named for its many potholes and heroin needles. As Blart rode, Josephi of Rome, his faithful steed and beloved companion, he noticed that the warm air of a summer storm was brewing. The tendrils of the breeze slapped his balding scalp as he gazed out towards his herd. Paul Blart knew that if his cattle started on a frightened run, he'd lose his house and maybe his life. Thinking quickly, he rode Josephi of Rome, Prince of Despero IX, towards the horns of the many long horns, so aptly named for their long and stringy hair. In an instant, a great monsoon washed over Louisiana, and only by sheer force of will was Paul Blart able to survive for 7 weeks, drinking cow blood and living in a cow carcass. He was fished out of the Mississippi River and had found that he'd traveled back in time and space to 2985 Common Era. Here, he was not in Louisiana, but rather Robotropolis, under the iron fist of Dr. Robotnik. Chapter 1. Kingdom Blarts. The sun shone brilliantly in the Mobian sky, and Paul Blart was kicked back, chillaxing. He had on dark sunglasses that he saw inside the Lost and Found at his new job. Paul loved working at Super Moby Mart, and would die for their merchandise. Damn, life is good. I don't even miss the 90s at all. I'm happy I'm here, but I don't remember or know how I came. Paul's super subsonic hearing detected a ruckus or a commotion. It was hard to say. He sped towards it on his Segway at once. As he gallivanted through perfect green pastures and a hill zone, the noise grew faint. Paul's Segway crawled to a stop, and he looked up at the sky. He saw hundreds of ships, maybe 1,000, more than 10 for sure, heading straight towards Mobotropolis. Paul blarted away after slinging his damp body over the Segway, breaking health and safety regulations with wild abandon, hurting him deeply. Bombs began to fall. Fire rained from the sky as it opened into a flash of the brightest light Paul had ever seen. "No!" was all Paul could say before the ground became dust around him. The heat, the ringing. Days seemed like 2 days, and a minute could feel like either 3 or 5 minutes, and Blart succumbed. When he awoke, his skin had 1st and 2nd degree burns, and he'd lost his connection to the World Tree. Unable to conjure healing incantations or brew a quick flask of abjuration, Blart limped towards Super Moby Mart, unsure if he'd ever arrive. After what seemed like 35 minutes, but was really closer to 20 or 15 minutes, Blart could see the Super Moby Mart citadel. It was under fire on all sides by the invaders' fleet. As he stood frozen, witnessing the fall of an empire, a hovercraft convoy rushed past him, their repulsor engines baking the mud and the grass. Paul tried to flag them down, to no avail. He turned away from the dot on the horizon, speeding towards the citadel, towards the smoke rising from the ground, towards the terrible noise. Stomping, marching, shots, screams, silence, marching. Paul hid in the remnants of a hovercraft garage. He'd not been successful in outrunning the wave of murder as they marched closer. Paul could make out the sound of a child crying in the street outside his lodge. Peeking out, he saw a two-tailed fox dragging something behind him. "Psst, kid, get in here." The fox seemed not to hear or to care, bereft with grief, crying. Paul would not have another Longhorn situation. He could not sit idly by. Dashing from cover, Paul yanked the child out of the street. It was then that he noticed the body of a Mobian wrapped in bloody linens. Their head was squished, skull fracture, blunt force trauma in the shape of an oversized foot. There was no saving them. They were older than the child and dressed in fine clothes. The linen was a satin white curtain with gold finishings. Paul looked away. The child was a liability. No one is spared, not the rich, the powerful, or the loud, especially. In his brief moment of hesitation, Paul Blart had been seen by the marching invaders. Chapter 2. Armageddon. Paul looked at his attackers. Hundreds of badniks with automatic rifles lined the streets, 200 yards away. A heavy metal behemoth with large guns hovered along in tow.
"Robotnik's kill squads!"
The boy had spoken. Wiping tears from his eyes, he pointed towards the wall of death.
"His machines are here! None are safe!"
The boy noticed Paul's standard-issue sidearm and quickly grabbed it. Before Paul could react, the boy had the muzzle of his handgun placed inside of his mouth. "Wait. The noise will draw them closer. You want to die? If you do, you'll have killed me too. Can you live with being a murderer, boy? Come to your senses." The boy wavered, and Paul picked him up and yanked him into the garage.
"You don't understand! I won't be like them!"
"Like dead? Are you nuts?"
"Like roboticized."
Paul looked at him, puzzled.
"Were you born yesterday?"
The boy seemed shocked.
"Robotnik enslaves people, kills everyone he doesn't need, and invades peaceful civilizations. My mother is gone, and my father is fighting Robotnik far away."
"Is your father alive?" Blard asked, concerned.
"I don't know. If Robotnik's here, then..."
The two shared a moment of silence, broken by a thundering crash. The roof caved in upon the heads of the two, sheltered under a hovercraft, located at the back of the garage. "Stay quiet. They might hear us."
No, we need hover motor oil to mask our heat signatures.
The boy began to douse himself with oil and grease. Blart followed, and the two of them oiled up, laying there silently, waiting for the death squads to pass. Paul heard and saw the behemoths pass their building as badniks picked through the rubble. Eventually, they passed on, content with the massacre. Paul watched as the sun set on Mobotropolis, and at dawn, Robotropolis replaced all memory of the new old world. The following weeks were hard. Paul and the boy, whose name was Miles, snuck between alleyways and into the sewer system. There they sat, angry, hungry, and alone.
Hello? Is anyone there?
Paul and Miles grabbed their weapons and readied themselves.